I'm actually really hopeful, just so you know, this morning, kind of almost with a little bit of dread, right? Like I want us to be in the game still, right? And I'm worried that somehow, and isn't this the like in a way the culminate or a symptom of the pandemic that I'm hopeful and then simultaneously I'm worried, right? Like both, like, oh my God, we might actually not screw up for all time. And then wait, this is great. And then wait, what if one, so that kind of conflict internally, this is not what I woke up thinking about, by the way. I woke up feeling stuff about yoga and kind of what I want to share today, if I can, you know. Um, but we'll see what I can do today. All right. So um start to feel more rather than less. As you know, for a long time, I've been telling you that the centering part, remember, all I'm doing is sharing descriptions of our, I think, what is our shared experience. So as you go inward and quiet down and start to have less mental content, right? Less judgment, more direct experience of what's happening here, right? Um, Not thoughts about it, but what's actually happening in your own. So one of the lines that I've been thinking about as an operating assumption is an unbelievable line by Rumi, which is, I think y'all have heard and so many times that maybe it's become hollowed out, but it shouldn't. It's one of those lines that you should look, feel for your whole life. Like you're not a drop in the ocean, but the entire ocean in a drop, right? So what you and I experience isn't just a drop in the ocean, it's the whole ocean in a drop, right? So what we have access to as experience and as part of being here contains everything, even if our minds can't sense it, right? So that's a big line and means that you and I can have wonder and self-exploration our entire existence. So as you sit up and you start to feel more rather than less, and you soften your organs of perception, what you're trying to do, and I've been telling you, I think that's opening to another dimension of the metaphysics, but that there's a quiet part here, an inward part. It isn't just your mind. Your mind is what becomes self-aware mentally of that space. But the space itself, the fullness and the emptiness, is actually part of human consciousness. It's landed for you by our nervous system and for me. So you're realizing, hey, let me soften up here. Let me ground here. Let me see if I can be a better conduit of what's happening, right? Of the experience, not of what's happening, of the experience. And notice some things like your breathing, at first in relationship to that quietness. And then if you've been practicing long enough, see if you can make it part, not just in relationship to what this experience is, but your breath being the manifestation of that experience. That will mean your mind needs to quiet down. As the yogis would say, dissolve. So we're not going to do the full centering yet. So then come on back. So one of the things that I think, first of all, this inward dynamic within human consciousness is probably what most of human history has been a competition for. Our institutions have been competing for the part of how we're a drop in the whole ocean. We're the entire ocean in a drop. Different belief systems try to direct this part of us, and different, faith is a way to move this energy without it getting mentally heavy. So this, when you go inward, when you're centering in a class, yeah, you're calming your mind down. That's all about you, right? But there's a potential here, right? That mind gets access to, and then can never have certainty again, right? So part of what the yogis are trying to pass down is there's access to this energy without the mind judging it, that it's an experience. Right now, you get to the really the gift of being alive is, and having mental awareness, is that you get to choose what to do with this energy that's more empty, has distance in it, feels like disconnection, to the mind at least. Like you have that energy in your drop. And you over time get to decide what beliefs to put there, right? How to direct it. That's up to you. Part of what the yogis are trying to do kind of is get you to notice it first, right? So as you sit up straight and tall, so I study asana because it shows me how this potential in me comes into action, right? Through my body, not through my mind. So sit up straight and tall. Feel your base. Try to stabilize this energy that lacks definition. But the body already does it for you. So we do this by noticing our feet on the floor, our sitting bones, how you're leaning against the back of your chair. The body's already stabilized this energy. Clearly, our minds in our society are unstable right now, more so than usual. Re-soften your jaw on the inside of your mouth. Let go of the skin on your face. Don't be afraid of it getting emptier, quieter. But then ever so slightly, like a burst of, I don't know if you want to be barfy, like love, slightly lift your chest. I don't mean barfy, I'm being facetious, right? Bring this part into the world. Notice your breath. If you want to keep your eyes open or your eyes shut, it's up to you. Just know that your drop belongs to the ocean. It's not just yours. It's a huge human failure. It's both. It's yours, and it's not yours. Good, and then release. When I get to that place, I can't help but smile just a little bit, like just a little bit. Because when I go inward like that, with my eyes open or shut, I can tell that it hums, right? it hums. It's got a hum to it, especially if I cannot get too attached to controlling it, right? So, this gulf from inward to out that is part of human consciousness, it's solved a whole bunch of ways. Faith is one way, but it's also this energy. The yogis are going to try to tell you that it's the source of attachment. What's the best form of attachment? Love. It traverses this space from inside to out. What a wonderful teaching. Close that gap by loving, right? There are, a whole bunch of institutions have told us in that gap that we're unworthy, right? Or we should feel guilty, or we should close the gap by manifesting. Always about the gap. Always about the fact that we're connected and disconnected simultaneously. So the yogis are also trying to tell you about this experience, without telling you mostly not what to believe, is that there's an unchanging part of this experience, and then there's a changing part of this experience. I was trying to teach a couple of weeks ago that your breath has access to both. Your breath has an inhalation and an exhalation, the changing part. It has the pause at the beginning of inhalation and the pause at the top, and the pause at the top of the inhalation. So your breath is actually touching all those dimensions. It's part of why it's so powerful. So again, start to go quiet. Notice your breath, the pauses, the motion, the pause, the motion. As you do that, balance your head over your neck. Feel your back body, not just your front body. When I try to feel the space between my ears and my shoulders, I'm less attached to what I see with my eyes. That's part of the insight. When I feel my sitting bones, here we move towards asana. When I feel my feet on the floor and balance my head over my neck and open to what's behind me and smile with the center of my chest, something transforms. Something integrates. It's less about my wants and desires. It's more about what's happening. The happening matters. Call it meditation, you can call it whatever you want. We're so damn lucky. Good, and then release. So, as you know, I'm still working through the over story. But I've been like having a new way of appreciating trees lately, and that is that how deeply and profoundly they carry time, kind of like our bodies, right? That they create a slower version of time, in which I get to move in and go out onto my deck and be amongst them, and they never deny me access to their space, right? I get to sit there whenever I want and be with them whenever I want. They are incredibly giving, but there's I'm around a whole bunch of older trees, and they are time holders. They open up time. That's why we go to museums and stuff. So been a lot happening here before you got here, before we got here. So sit up straight and tall again. I warned you. I woke up writing into my phone. Turns out that in this space, human beings are really bad about thinking about the future. Hence, we don't deal with global warming. But it's partly because we're bad about allowing the past. You can't correct the past. You have to allow it. It's painful for the mind, not for the trees. You're the entire ocean in a drop. This isn't a belief. It's a truth. What you do with it's up to you. Good, and then release. So we're going to start the asana part more now. But so one of the many reasons I study asana is that it brings direction to my experience without it requiring belief. Now, belief can come later, and if belief needs to be part of your direction, okay. But I'm going to watch. I like studying because I like to watch how the entire ocean in a drop moves with me. Right. So here's again, good old Richard Freeman staying in my head for all these years. He one time was doing a centering that I was around, and he said, every time you inhale, bring the whole world towards you. And I visualize that like a tablecloth with the table settings on it, and you pull the tablecloth towards you, and everything comes towards you. Okay. So on this next inhalation, by the way, the whole universe comes towards you if you're the entire ocean of a drop. Right? So inhale and draw in. Use the pause to appreciate. And then let it go back. On these next couple of breaths, make sure you're breathing and including your back body. So it doesn't just come towards your nose. As you breathe, it's coming through your back body too. Pause at that top and gently smile. And then put the tablecloth back in place. And go back and forth for a while. So damn lucky. Good. And then so my mind has a hard time. Remember, knowing your mind, knowledge is kind of a construct. So the mind is open to the emptiness and gets uncertain. So put your hands in. I'm putting my hands on the table here. Got a very messy desk this morning. right? And I'm going to ground my hands, and you could put your elbows on your lap, whatever, right? And I'm going to know where my feet are, or try to feel my feet. And I'm going to ground my hands and feet. In order to find my big toe mound, I'm going to pay attention because I have a severed spinal cord. I'm going to feel my thumb, right? In order to find my ankles, I'm going to feel my wrists, elbows to hips. Now, when I start doing that, my arms want to straighten. I don't know about you. Lift the sternum. Spread across the back side of the ribs. As you broaden between the space between the shoulder blades, connect to your inner heels and roll your index finger mound into the table or into your thighs if you're using your hands. Balance your head over your neck. I tend to not feel the space over here as much on that side of my head, so I'm going to try to balance. Even though my mind experiences asymmetry. Don't stare at anything in particular, but stay stable. Don't disassociate when you soften your eyes. Lift your sternum slightly more as you soften your eyes. Good, and then release. So there've been a whole bunch of teachers that are way smarter than us. Okay? I guess the historical Buddha said this: the first foundation of mindfulness is the body. Right? Huh. So if I can feel the outline of my body, maybe my mind will stabilize. And I'll start to feel more of the metaphysic, and I won't be so attached to my own suffering. Maybe that's part of that message, right? All right, so now I'm gonna make it more playful. Do what we always do when we warm up for asana, right? I want to feel my empty spaces in movement, right? So I'm going back and forth. And here I have more of my emptiness as fullness if I lift my chest as I come back. Here, when I go back over my chair, if I push on my legs, I have more of my fullness, right? And so, my God, I'm in motion. Both my emptiness and my fullness is in motion, right? And at first, it's easier for me to see this on a vertical plane, right? Like where I stay aligned, right? But that's only like half of the universe, right? And clearly, not everything goes at right angles, right? So I'm going to go off to the side. I'm going to start having it, man. Like, it's not just my breath that pulls the taper clock toward me, right? I'm doing all sorts of stuff, right? Wait a minute. The truth stays unchanging and I move, right? Right? Somehow it's unchanging and I move, right? So the mind has a really hard time with what's unchanging. That's why we have faith, right? We've innovated faith. So sit up straight and tall again. There's that unchanging part. Now can I move? What the hell? Let's make it easier at first. Big movements. I'm not trying to do this completely as a yogi. I'm just trying to move in rhythm and guiding it. Wait, maybe I'll make it a little slinkier here, a little more sensual. Shit. I get control. I get to affect, not control, how this moves. You mean in my own little drop, I can be clumsy. Watch me be clumsy. All right? Watch me try to be graceful. I have to make choices. Choices how to honor this space, right? My mind does get to participate. It just needs not to be in control of everything. Right? So again, you know that I care a lot about, I've been trying to show you for a long time, that the space, the compression in your low back deadens your life force. That's why smoking, just sitting is the new smoking, right? So lift up and let your sitting bones hang just a little bit. And if you can't lift up, thinking about gay right now, hit down through your sitting bones and lift your chest. So in a way, if you can't do this, right, you can sit, hit down and lift the sternum, right? And if you're lucky enough to be able to coordinate all these movements, right, bully for you. It teaches you nothing more. And in fact, the more movement you have, maybe the less realization you have, right? And then sit, ground your hands and feet again, and try to just sit in the hum again. So one of the things I woke up wanting to share to you, and I'm way off track already, was the difference between knowing yourself and being yourself. Right? Being yourself means with a quieter mind. So the yogis are trying to reveal that part of your experience to you more. The part that isn't based in knowledge. Knowledge is a fascination of the West. So I'm inhaling and exhaling. I'm noticing the pauses at the top and the bottom. And I'm feeling my body. Asana grounds my awareness. All right, so now I want to use this core energy, right? And I want to expand it. Part of what asana does. So let's take your feet, spread your knees, take your feet wide. Again, don't get that sandbag on the floor. Remember, you're the entire ocean in it. So unfortunately or fortunately, one of the things that happened this morning is I listened to the Talking Heads once in a lifetime, right? Which is the same as it ever was, right? So it's the same as it ever was, even though my legs are wide. I'm just feeling that. And it's different. Hard for my mind to grasp. Not for my consciousness, though. Right? So I'm going, why did I take left arm out? Down. Other arm. So I'm going to start making rhythm here. So when I first do it, I think it's about my arms. Right? Now I'm going to make sure I stay connected to my base. So I'm going to change gravity and get more stability from the earth. I'm going to pause a little bit, slow it down a little bit. Something I learned from trees. And I'm going to lift my chest. Remember, and then release. Remember that you're the entire ocean in the drop. Come forward again. Stability is a good energy. Lift my sternum. Good. And then go back. So the idea is I'm really tight today. I can tell, right? But so it's easier on one level, but it's not as fun to stay just in the midline. I'm going to try to realize the same thing by leaning over here. So I'm pushing my forearm into my leg. I'm thinking, well, how much does everything transform if I open my chest? I'm just going to feel this For those of you that know more full yoga poses, heading towards right there, Parsvakonasana, side plank pose. Good, and then release. So I can tell I got one groin that's being way tighter than the other, especially today. Right, I'm gonna lean the other way. So I'm gonna just first put, just like when I'm dead in mind, I just like lean on it. But I trust my body. I'm gonna lift my chest. I'm gonna open between them. Both open my chest this way, but also on the back side, spread the space between my shoulder blades. And then don't, just let your shoulders drop and feel what happens. Okay, so now this next time, when I lift my chest, open across my chest, see if when you open the center of your sternum and broaden, well, like let's say broaden between the back ribs, see if you can't feel your heels more. So here's me just opening my chest, rolling the front side of my chest open. Now I'm going to increase the space between my shoulder blades. I'm going to see if I feel a change in my sense of my whole presence. And then I'm going to drop and look how much different it is. Right? And then come on back to center. Bring your legs back into breath control. Remember, in a yoga class that's traditional, we're going to be constantly asking the student, or I am when I'm teaching traditional students, i.e. able-bodied students, right? You have to keep changing positions all the time. Legs wide, legs together, head down, head up, right? And so a lot of what I'm trying to get you when you move it, right, is try to get you some of the effect of variation, right? Because that's what an asana has, right? An asana practice. It's got variation in it, right? And you and I have to figure out variation without as big of movements. So now I'm back to center. I'm finding the core again, the unchanging part. Then I'm taking my legs wide again. And I'm noticing what happens when I lay lazily back on my sitting bones, or when I come forward on my sitting bones. Then I'm moving off gravity, and I'm opening, right? And but I want this time, even though this leg is bent over here, I'm going to try to extend it straight out, right? So I'm going to try to like take grounding here, extension there, from my hip to my knee. And to do that, I'm going to lift my chest. Then I'm going to open the space between the backside of my shoulder. And I'm going to feel. First, I want to hold my breath, right? I want to breathe too. I want there to be movement in the effort. Good. So let's say you're picking up a great big piece of, like something, a boulder, 200 pounds. When you go to lift it up, your chances are you're going to hold your breath, right? And then once you feel secure, you're going to start breathing again. So as I come over here and I shift gravity and I track my whole body, then I try to integrate my breath more. Good, and then release. And then back to the midline. Remember, the mind is inherently unstable by itself. Come forward, come back. It opens the world exactly because it's uncertain, right? It opens potential. So now I'm going to take my legs wide again. I'm just going back and forth, introducing variation. I'm going to come forward on my sitting bones, take my arm out. As I go beyond this fingertip, I'm bringing my shoulder blade back into my shoulder softly. As I stretch beyond my fingertips, and I'm going to extend from my backside hip out through my knee. So I'm going out, I'm pulling the shoulder girdle back in. I'm hitting down through my sitting bones. I'm going to call this my right side over here. This is my left side, right? And I'm going to extend from my sitting bone out through my knee. As I pull the shoulder blade back of my left arm, as I extend beyond my fingertips, my left fingertips. I'm going to breathe. Then I'm going to come back. And I'm going to do the same thing over here. How do I stay with the earth as I extend? Out. Find the grounding. Right, so this is harder for me on this side. All right, so I'm going out through my fingertips, back through my shoulder blades, smile with the center of my chest. Ground my sitting bones. And as I'm extending out through my right arm, I'm expanding from my left hip to my left knee. Full body pose. I'm hoping to do this equally so I feel a hum on the bottoms of my feet. Good, and then release. Be in the center. Bring your legs back together. By the way, the hum, so feeling where your body is in space, and this is the advantage if you live with a spinal cord injury. I don't actually get to feel the skin on the bottoms of my feet. I can only feel the hum in the core of my consciousness where my bottoms of my feet are mapped in my brain, right? So if a really advanced yoga practitioner is fixated on every muscle twitch, they're not going to be able to hold poses. So I'm breathing, getting my breath again. Inhale, take the left arm up. Exhale. Now, like it matters, with a fluid movement, open and stay grounded. So coming into the twist is important, more important than how far you twist. Inhale, there's an expansion, holy crimes. Exhale, I get to come towards the midline and move my outer body farther into the twist as I move closer to my midline and then come on back to center. That's one of the paradoxes of asana. As I get grounded in the midline, my outer body has more expression outwardly, right? It's amazing. Just ground, feel your feet, sitting bones, each side of your chest. Inhale, take the arm up. Exhale, watch the fluid movement. Ground, make this opening matter. Keep the spaces open in your whole body. Your mind always wanes. Reconnect your sitting bones, reconnect your inner heels. Lift the sternum up. Balance your head over your neck. If you want to do more, inhale, expand, exhale, and revolve. Bring all of the ocean with you, like the tablecloth. Good, and then come on back to center. Right? The instructions are just so your mind doesn't drop the ball. Right? Your mind does not teach the yoga pose. Experience does. Practice teaches the yoga pose, not your mind. I'm just trying to entertain your mind with instructions so it can, I think of like on a skating rink, the ice capades, they go in a circle and that end person has a hard time catching up, right? Because that's where the velocity is the greatest. You ever seen that where they're skating, trying to catch up to the end skater? That's what the mind is trying to do. It's like trying to catch up to the end, to the side of the line that's moving, right? And so the instructions are to help the end skater catch the line, right? When it comes to realization. So you're sitting up straight and tall again. I want you to practice. Don't do yoga just with your mind. So this next time, instead of like I tell you to come forward, you start it from your mind, right? Find the center of your chest. Lift it slightly and come forward, leading from the center of your chest. Different action. The spine stays elongated when you do it that way. If I just think about coming forward, my mind's gonna go, oh, throw the head forward, right? No, bring your spine forward as you come forward, right? And then back. And then again, I'm gonna pull on my knees because I want to activate my spine. Lead with my chest, with my spine more active, my mind in less control. It gains, the mind gains, and then come back. The mind gains comfort if it sinks into the spine, right? When the mind stays out alone, it's going to be vulnerable to bad stories, right? And then again, I'm going to grab my knees. I'm going to come forward from here. Extend, stay as lifted as I can, as long as I can. This is how we teach forward bends, right? Iyengar is really good at this, keeping the chest lifted until it drops. Good, and then come on back. So in a forward bend, say you're long sitting, because Iyengar will actually give traditional students and you and me, if you have a belt, you're going to put a belt around your feet because he wants the container to stay whole, the chest to stay lifted, so the container stays whole before you come down. Eventually in a forward bend, the outer sternum does drop, but not without a ton of activation, right? So again, when I'm having to pull on your knees to come forward, I'm trying to pass on you a core insight of forward bends that come from Iyengar yoga, right? So I'm grabbing my knees, I'm coming forward into my spine. And I want it not just to be with my will. I want the backside of my sternum to come forward with grace as I activate and pull with my arms, right? And then the gravity starts to change. And of course I want to go with the fall, but yogis are always resisting and falling too at the same time. So my chest stays lifted as I come down. And then I put my gaze on the floor. Good, and then come on back. So those of you that have a table, right, we're gonna do the same thing. And I'm gonna end up with my hands on the table, right? You can do the same thing again if you're using your own legs as your table, right? So I'm gonna ground, activate, lower away from my mind into my chest, away from the fluctuation and into the stability of the spine, right? From there, I'm gonna come forward and then shift to connect to the table or a sense of grounding, keeping my sternum lifted, the collarbones lifted, the space between my shoulder blades spread, finding where my sitting bones are, where my heels are, especially the inner edge, and I'm gonna come down even farther, keeping my chest lifted as long as I freaking can, right? And then when there is no more, I can take my head down. How do I stay in my whole body? I have to receive the fruits of my efforts. Good, and then release. Because no doubt it took my mind to keep my chest lifted as I came forward. My will is going to come from my mind at first. It's whether it can receive what it's getting when the will's activated, right? So we're going to try it one more time. I'm going to balance my head over my neck because I want the whole tablecloth, I want the whole ocean to come with me, right? So I'm going to balance my head over my neck, feel my sitting bones, feel my feet, lift my chest, all that stuff. Because damn it, I'm the entire ocean in a drop. I'm both here and not here. Right? And I want all of it. Remember, there's a difference between knowing your empty spaces and realizing your empty spaces. Self-knowledge versus self-realization. Can I forward bend as a function of realization, not of mental awareness? So I'm grounding because my mind has to get quiet. I'm going to now use my will, use my awareness first to feel my sitting bones and have my mind receive. Put my mind in my feet so I can receive. going to activate lower, not lead from my head, lower. Lead with the center. This is all an active will now, right? But you're trying to stay full. You're coming down with a lifted chest. I'm switching my arms now. Of course, I drop. Then I have to reactivate. So I'm active. So I'm using my will to keep my chest lifted because it wants to drop. But I want to keep my legs as part of the forward bend, right? So I'm coming down. And when I think I don't want to strain too hard and do violence, but when it's no longer productive to focus on lifting my chest and feeling my sitting bones and broadening across my sacrum and feeling my inner heels, then I'm going to come down and feel the full force of the falling as part of me stays awake and full. So I'm looking at the floor. Good, and then release. Come on back up. So I'm teaching a whole bunch about forward bends. So I'm in Dandasana. So imagine I'm on my yoga mat. My legs are straight out in front of me, Dandasana, staff of leg pose, whatever you call it. So basically you're sitting up straight in your chair. Though your feet are on the floor, there's still your hip to your femur bone is still straight out to your knee. So you're in aversion, right? So I remember as we just did all this, right? Like with all this will and all this focus, my yoga teacher gave me an instruction that completely blew my mind as I was doing a forward bend, right? It seems so simple. She said, as you come forward and you're doing all the things that you're about to do, before you start, pick a point in your mid-thigh, inner mid-thigh, right? So, between your hip and your groin, and your knee, pardon me, and your mid-thigh. And before you start coming forward, take that point and draw it back as your as your chest is lifting. So instead of all the strain being keeping the chest lifted, there's an undercurrent of river hitting back. So we're going to do the same thing we just did, where I was cueing more for will, right? But now I want you to open to this backward movement this way that propels this way, right? And it's in every single forward bend, right? And it's how do you get it to be a rhythmic continuation, right? So sit up straight and tall. Remember, I'm doing all these things because I want the relationship between my legs and my spine to be solid. So if we were in class together, I'd have someone push on your knees because I'd want you to feel how, as you push back, know where your legs, it's not just your spine that's forward bending, right? So I'm trying to activate a little bit here. Find the earth. Lift the chest. So I'm going to come forward. I want to show you that, but I want to come forward so I'm near my table, right? So, okay, I'm activating here. So before I start coming forward, which if my brain just does it, I just come forward. It's not as earthy as it could be. I'm now going to pick a point in my mid-inner thighs. Draw it back towards my base of my spine as I lift my chest and lead with my chest forward. So again, the whole time I'm coming down, right, I'm trying to deepen by picking the point from the inner thigh, mid-inner thighs, back towards my base of my spine and come down. And then I'm going to switch. So again, as I exhale, I find when I exhale, I can draw the inner mid-thigh towards my spine better on exhalation. On inhalation, I'm going to be able to lift my chest more as I come down. I hope this is being a hard pose. This should be freaking hard, right? So now, even though I'm picking the mid-thigh and moving back towards my spine, broaden across the backside of your sacrum. Keep the chest lifted. come forward, and then keeping that imprint in the body, drop your head down. Keep everything lit like a torch. Soften your jaw, the inside of your mouth. Be quiet as you're efforting. Feel your breath. Good, and then back up. So part of what asana has taught me is that the mind has to be stabilized in the body in order for my mind to open doors so I can receive more. So the instructions are the stability that allows you to open the doors into dimension, right? So, all right. So now we got to do a couple of things because those were intense. By the way, everyone hates forward, or most people hate forward bends, right? Just so you know, they're so freaking inward. Damn it. Right? You seem like you're making no freaking progress. So because I'm a benevolent teacher, I'm going to have your back bend a little bit so you don't feel like you're trapped into a small room. Forward bends are like going into the small room. Like all of a sudden you're in the confines of your drop, and you have to remember you're part of the ocean, right? Forward bends drive you right into a smaller space. That's part of why they're so confrontive for the mind, right? So now go back up and over. Damn, I might even take an arm wide. Hey, I got to remember I'm with the trees even when I forward bend, right? I'm with the trees even when I'm driving inward, right? Like, so I'm with the trees even as I pick a point in my middle inner thigh and draw back to come forward. I got to stay with the trees even as I drive inward and come up, right? Like up and over the back of your chair. Now, as you come forward, draw back, expand your chest, ground, boom, up. I'm with the trees, out, but I'm still picking a point in my inner thigh and being in and out. And then I'm coming back going like, holy guacamole, right? I can take my forearm or my left forearm on the inside of my left thigh. I'm just going to twist a little bit, like not a big ass twist over here, a little ass twist. And I'm going to make it feel good. What the hell? I'm coming to the end of class. Why wouldn't I make it feel good, for God's sakes? Right? And then I'm going to come back and I'm going to do it the other way. Hey, wait, I don't have to be so freaking serious. Holy crimes. And then come back. And I'm going to rock a little bit, but I'm going to make sure the outside of my mouth is slightly going up because crap, I don't want to go into the darkness in Shavasana, right? I want to go into the lightness that's in the darkness in Shavasana, right? There's lightness in them, their darkness, right? All right, so then practice symmetry. Each foot, each sitting bone. Each side of the breastbone. Empty space, each side of the ear to the shoulder. As you practice symmetry, open to what's behind you, right? So all of a sudden, before you go into Shavasana, you're practicing how you're the entire ocean in a drop. You're connected to everything. Feels hopeful to me. Good, and then prepare for Shavasana. So I'm going to scoot forward so I can lean back into my chair a little bit more because I want to be held up. Shavasana, you want something to support you. Physical. So I'm just sitting. Oh, dang, I can feel a little bit of irritation in my shoulder. Damn it. Must have done something. I'm going to try to wait through that for a second. Just keep my presence through my entire body. Touch my thumbs together for me. So there's subtlety here, lightly. So that makes me be aware of that. I tip my head. You've got to find your own path into relief. Soften the skin on your face, the jaw, the inside of the mouth. Just to revisit the class, feel the point in the mid-inner thighs, connected to the center of your chest. Soften your jaw, skin on your forehead. Let all those points exhale at the same time. Feel your breath. Don't change it. Thank your body. Forgiveness like gratitude, gratitude like forgiveness is transformative for you, not for out there. Start to bring yourself back. Slightly deeper inhalation, slightly longer exhalation. When you're ready, open your eyes. If it was too bright, close them again. And then choose to open. So one of the things that I've been thinking about for years and years and years, and this class didn't quite get it right, is the difference between self-realization and self-knowledge. And both are important, right? And the West has gotten, in Western psychology, has gotten way into the self-knowledge, which is important. But the realization of self is an experience, right? And it is helped by knowing yourself, for sure. But the experience itself is the ground of self, right? And the experience of self with both its emptiness and its fullness. So self-knowledge is always trying to make our emptiness into structure. Self-realization moves with both. So I practice asana to help me bring the part that my mind doesn't get to control into movement so it can be realized through feeling and not through judgment, right? So these are big truths that hopefully you get lost in the rest of your life like I am too. right? Because it's a work in progress. But it's why your practice matters. If you don't practice, only your mind's going to be doing yoga, right? And remember, breathing's a practice, right? So practice needs to expand. All right, everybody. I hope you have a good something, whatever you're doing this week. I'm going to try to do the same thing.